Hello, and welcome everyone to GIA's Knowledge Sessions, a series of presentations by our experts in the field of gemology. At GIA, we've been very fortunate to be able to study and research gems for many decades and have the opportunity to share that knowledge with you. My name is Judy Colbert, and I'm Manager of Visual Resources in the Richard T. Lydekote Gemological Library. Today, it's my privilege to introduce my colleague, Rose Tozer, Senior Research Librarian, who has a special treat in store for you today. Do you know that some gems are thought to be cursed? Which symbols and amulets are believed to bring the wearer good luck? How do these superstitions originate? We'll find out this and more today from Rose's talk. Before we begin, please note that your microphones have been muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the question and answer feature toward the bottom of your screen. At the end of the presentation, Rose will have the chance to answer a few of your questions. In case you missed any part of the presentation, you'll receive an email message later today with a link to access the recording. It will also include a survey, which we hope you will answer and provide feedback about the talk today. With that, let's get started. Over to you, Rose.
Well, thank you, Judy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. During these challenging times, we thought we would do something a little fun and talk about superstitions and lore. As gemologists, science is our truth, but let's face it, superstitions are fun, especially if we take them with a grain of salt. Superstitions arise when people don't understand why events are happening and they are looking for a way to explain it. It's often difficult to separate superstitions from folklore, from healing properties. Shall I say it is one big cauldron of information soup. This presentation is meant to entertain you, not to prescribe or discount any superstition or healing property. I found a huge variety of information on the internet, in magazine articles, and books. My personal viewpoint is if you like a gem or a piece of jewelry, forget any negative connotations and go with the positive, because that's what gems and jewelry should do for us, make us happy. So first, let me tell you a little bit about the library. We are located here in Carlsbad, California at GIA's World Headquarters. We are staffed with experienced gemologists and trained librarians. Anyone can contact us for assistance. You have to have no connection to GIA. And our contact information is here below. And you can call between 9:30 and 1:15. However, really the best way to reach us is via email. With the exception of two of the books I'll be talking about, we have scanned all of them and made them available on Internet Archive. And this is one of our pages on Internet Archive. And appropriately, we have 666 books available for you to view and download for free. When providing summaries of the contents of the books, I refer to Gemology, an annotated bibliography written by John Sinkankas. John created this 2-volume finding aid for his library, which GIA purchased in 1989. Because this work is under copyright, we had to ask permission from the Sinkankas family to scan it and make it available for free on Internet Archive, which you can now view yourself. So thank you to the Sinkankas family. So I thought I'd start, before I show you the books, I'll take you into our archives. People often wonder what it looks like. They think it's something like you would see on Harry Potter. Here is the entrance, and let's go inside. This is a great photo taken by our library photographer, Emily. It is a little deceptive, however. The archive is not as big as it looks. It's only 23 feet by 43 feet, which is just under 1,000 square feet. So our first work is Pliny's Natural History, 1496, and it is the oldest book in our library. Before the Renaissance, there were 3 main types of works which provided information about minerals and gems. They were encyclopedias, herbals, and lapidaries. The library has 2 out of the 3 of these. We have Pliny's Encyclopedia and Marbot's Lapidary. For the gemologist, it all starts here with Pliny. This copy was printed in 1496 in Venice, but the contents actually date to the year 77. While Pliny was not a scientist, He was a recorder of information. His encyclopedia was the foundation of all science until the Renaissance. Pliny was stationed in the Bay of Naples in the year 79. Scientific studies have dispelled the idea that Pliny died from breathing the noxious fumes from an erupting Mount Vesuvius. It has been determined that he was in poor health and had been in poor health for weeks before the eruption, and he was overweight and died of a heart attack as he was trying to leave the area. His heart attack and death just happened to coincide with this momentous event of Mount. This work consists of 37 books or chapters, with the last 5 books on metals and gems. This last book, book 37, is what our knowledge of ancient gemology is based. Here's the beginning of that chapter, and the heading is Origio Gemmarium, or Origin of Gems. Pliny, like I said, Pliny was a recorder of information, so he recorded, he talked to scientists, and so that is what is in the encyclopedia. He does make note of medicinal properties of gems, however. The Book of Precious Stones by Marbode, 1511. This is our lapidary. Marbode was not a scientist either. He was born about 1035 in Anjou, France. He was not a scientist, but initially a schoolmaster, and he becomes a bishop of Rennes in 1096. This, as I mentioned, this work is a lapidary, and lapidaries contain medicinal, magical, and/or mythical characteristics of gems. Because gems were often purchased for magical powers, and not just for personal adornment, jewelers would sell their stones with a lapidary or refer to the lapidary to provide credibility for their goods. Like the 1496 edition of Pliny, this work is technically a reprint. Our copy was printed in 1511, but the information was originally written between 1061 and 1081 and was in the form of a 742-line poem. This is the earliest lapidary from the Middle Ages, and this copy that we have was the first Marbode work printed using Gutenberg's printing process of movable metal type. Marbode documented characteristics for 60 gems, and on the right is his index, really more of a table of contents. Further study has shown that some of these gems he lists do not exist. Possibly in an attempt to provide scholarly basis to his content, at the beginning of each gem, Marbode cites his sources of information, most notably Pliny's Natural History. Although Pliny makes note of medicinal properties of gems, he discounted any magical properties. He referred to these purveyors as magicians. And on the right, I highlighted a few of the obvious stones that you would recognize. Achat, that's agate. Adamas is diamond. Carbuncle, that's a red stone, typically red garnet. You have coral, hematite, onyx, pyrite, sapphire, sard, sardonyx. Smaragdus is emerald, and topaz. Bacchis of Gems and Precious Stones, 1603. Here, Bacchi was a scientist. He studied botany and pharmacy in Rome, and in addition to this treatise, he wrote many works on medical topics. And this work goes into the nature, origin, virtues, uses, and gems of the Bible, and it also includes lore and superstition. Pearls and Ornaments, illustrations by Gavarni, by Joseph Méry, approximately 1850. Méry was a French litterateur, poet and writer of romances and dramas. And Gavarni is actually a pseudonym. He was a popular caricaturist and artist in France. The book goes into the romance of jewels and mineralogy of gems. This book was marketed toward women and is very plainly written. So even though it does discuss mineralogy, it is not a technical work. I wish you could see this book in person because it's pretty fantastic cover. On the right, very elaborate. The spine and the back of the book are equally decorated. And in the book, there are 16 illustrations featuring a woman on each illustration. And with the exception of this woman, all the other women are wearing a gem. She is not associated with a gem in the book, but she is found in the chapter called Le Magique Bague, or the Magic Ring. She is actually a magician named Menai Wolf. The illustrations in this book, were put onto white paper that was die cut to look like lace. So on the left, you see what the full page looks like and what appears to be lace bordering the illustration. And on the right, I did a close-up of the magician. What I loved about this illustration of all of them in the book is my eye goes directly to the center of the image. Here you have the book sitting on the lap. And as I always say, knowledge isn't power, knowing where to find it is. And here she finds her spells in her book to give her powers. On the left, we have a book on hair work called The Lock of Hair, published in 1871 by Alana Spite. Hair jewelry was very popular during Victorian times, and in this work, Spite discusses hair from two very distinct points of view. First, hair on the head, as in a hairstyle, and hair off the head, as in jewelry. She also makes hair jewelry and provides instructions in the book. At the end, there are advertisements for lockets, brooches, and bracelets the reader can order for her own hair work creations. And on the right is a contemporary newsletter called Hairline, and it covered the history and manufacturing of hair jewelry. Although Hairline has ceased publication, it is still under copyright, and so we have not scanned it and put it on Internet Archive. If you want to see this publication, you do have to visit the library. Kerwin's Funeral Customs, 1893. Kerwin provides a history of funerals and describes the customs of mourners following carriages which carried the deceased, bells tolling, and gifting of mourning rings. He says these customs were brought over from Old England to New England by the early American settlers. The making and gifting of memorial rings were confined almost exclusively to the wealthy, as they were expensive. These rings were made out of 18-karat gold, and most of them were enameled. Funeral rings were enameled in black and edged with gold, bearing an inscription of the name, age, and date of death of the person at whose funeral they were given. Here we have two works by E.A. Wallace Budge, who was a keeper at the British Museum. On the left is Egyptian Magic, one of the many books that Budge wrote about mummies. And on the right is Amulets and Superstitions. The one on the right, as you're probably gathering, is not out of copyright, so it's not scanned, but I loved the cover of this. That is gold tooling on red cloth. Here's Cherubel's 1906 Psychology of Botany. And his title says it all, well, almost all. It is a treatise on trees, shrubs, and plants, etc., for the cure of diseases and ailments of the human system without medicine, by sympathy, positive and negative, on the soul plane. In addition to plants, he discusses curative powers, psychological properties, and lore of minerals and gems. Power of Gems and Charms by Bratley, 1907. We do have an older work of this Power of Gems and Charms, but I love the cover here, and I love to share pretty covers. The work discusses both animate and inanimate objects and their inherent supernatural powers, occult powers in jewelry and gems, and ancient and modern theories on how mystical properties and powers arise and on the efficacy of the gems and charms. And you can't talk about lore or superstitions without going to Kunz. George Kunz was an American gemologist, mineralogist, and author and entrepreneur. He was a prolific writer, and we have an extensive bibliography of his works on our website. These Kunz works are encyclopedic in nature and are considered the standard go-to works for lore and mystical properties. Magic and Science of Jewels by Kominsky. This is now a scarce work, and in my own reference work, an overlooked resource. It is comparable to Curious Lore by Kunz, but includes material not found in Kunz. In addition to lore, it also discusses gems in Shakespeare's works. Magical Jewels of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance by Joan Evans, 1922. Evans was a British historian of French and English medieval art, especially early modern and medieval jewelry. Her work discusses the belief in the virtues of gems and jewels from ancient to 18th century. And now I will close this short chapter on our book section and talk about Garden of Gems by Leonard Rosenthal, 1924. Rosenthal was a pearl dealer whose business tanked with the advent of pearl culturing. And this work provides information about gems. It does give some scientific details, but stresses superstitions, magic, romance, and lore. Now, I'd like to talk about some typical Halloween motifs. All of the motifs and gems have a wide variety of both positive and negative. I tend to focus on the positive. We have our friend the bat. Bats are a sign of transition, letting go of the old and welcoming in the new. Bats are thought to be a sign of good fortune. A bat that flies into a theater over a stage is a good omen. However, if that bat follows you into your house, it means you are being chased by the devil. And on the right, we have a very sweet bat brooch out of carved labradorite. Quite realistic. And here are two funerary dress ornaments that are very elaborate. On the left, we have a gold bat and greenish gray jade wings. You can see there's his head, and there's the flower that he's holding, and the wings, obviously. On the right is Twice Happy, and it's two bats flying over a lotus motif. And this piece is so elaborate, it's hard to see where the bats are, so I've circled them for you. But just in case, here is the nose, the eyes, the ears, and the wings of that bat on the left, and the same over here. From bats to cats. The poor cat, especially black cats, they get such a bad rap. But ancient Egyptians believed gods lived within cats, and in Europe in the 19th century, to see a black cat was considered a good omen. And a black cat on your porch was supposed to be good luck. But somewhere along the line, a black cat crossing your path became a sign of misfortune, possibly death. And on the right, this is our black cat. It is a black jadeite panther carving. From cats to cat's eye. A cat's eye is from chatoyancy. And chatoyancy is an optical phenomenon that occurs when inclusions within the stone are properly oriented in reflected light. And the sharper the eye, the better. Cat's eye stones will protect against diseases of the chest and throat. And to be in possession of a cat's eye stone means the owner's fortune will never diminish. And on the right, we have a beautiful Art Deco brooch featuring the cat's eye chrysoberyl, and also has emeralds and diamonds. From cat's eye to the evil eye. References to the evil eye date to 600 BCE. However, the belief in it may actually be older than that. The evil eye superstition originates in Greece and Turkey. And it was a curse that was cast by malevolent glare, usually directed toward a person who is unaware. The person on whom the evil eye is directed will fall under misfortune. And that's where we get evil eye amulets. They will protect the wearer from someone who is thinking bad thoughts. Placing an evil eye amulet on the door to your home prevents harmful things from entering the home. And on the right, you see an evil eye bangle from India, 19th century. This is a very typical style for the evil eye, with the blue on the outside and then the white of the eye and then the dark center. That blue is the traditional color for positive energy, and that's why you always see blue in the very traditional evil eyes. Owls. It's possible the owl's nocturnal activity and its ability to turn its head almost completely around was at the root of many superstitions. In some American Indian cultures, owls are a sign of protection for their warriors. Many cultures believe a person after death becomes an owl, and the owl is an embodiment of the female spirit and should not be harmed. But some believe that the woman in the owl is actually vindictive or as a result of a woman's rage. Seeing an owl is a foreshadowing of change, usually associated with death. And here we have a carved Labradorite owl on top of a petrified wood base. And this is just the sweetest little thing. If you ever got to see it in person, you can hold it in the palm of the owl in the palm of your hand. It's that size. And here are two cute little owls. We have these carvings are by Alfred Zimmerman. He is a gem carver from Eder Oberstein. On the left, we have a young eagle owl out of bicolor beryl. He looks quite cranky, actually. And on the right, we have a beautiful burrowing owl carved out of citrine. Scarab beetles. The life of the scarab beetle revolves around the dung balls the beetles consumed, laid their eggs in, and fed their young, which represents a cycle of rebirth. When the eggs hatch, the scarab beetle seems to appear from nowhere, making it a symbol of spontaneous creation, resurrection, and transformation. Scarab beetles always seem to have a positive association. The beetle itself was such a favorite form, it was used for amulets in all periods of Egyptian jewelry. They were so favored, they could either be purely decorative or have a symbolic purpose. A scarab amulet provided the wearer with protection, and when placed on the bandages of mummies, they are identified with the heart of the deceased. On the right, we have a sweet little scarab pin, Egyptian revival period. And we have this great pendant brooch watch in the shape of a scarab. On the top, we have the pharaoh's head, which is carved from carnelian, and on top of his head, the headdress is green and blue enameled gold. The body is designed as a scarab, enameled with diamond set wings and ruby eyes. A button at the base, when pressed, enables the wings to open and reveal a small watch, which you see in the center image here. The underside of the piece is realistically engraved with legs and a carapace. While scarab beetles always seem to have positive superstitions or symbology, we often think of skeletons and skulls as being associated with death, bad luck, and the occult. But it wasn't always this way. During the Middle Ages, any bones associated with the saints were connected with miracles and healing. In the belief human bones had medicinal properties, apothecaries would add ground up bones to a range of concoctions. But we often think of skull and crossbones emblems to indicate danger and potential death, as in signage on poison containers or pirate flags. These skull carvings are part of a 26-piece collection by Peruvian gem carver Luis Alberto. On our website, we have at least one article and a couple of videos of Luis Alberto giving an interview and giving a demonstration on how he carved these skulls. On the left, we have Troublemaker, and the skull is carved from aquamarine, but he does have a headband of lapis, and he sits on an obsidian base. On the right, we have Ghost, and his skull and cowl are carved out of chalcedony and a labradorite base. Snakes are often seen as sinister. However, ancient Greek and Roman times, snakes symbolized fertility and warded off evil. In the Victorian era, snakes represented love, wisdom, and eternity. Because snakes shed their skin, they are a sign of immortality. But snakes are guardians of the underworld. And on the right, we have a pair of gold snake bangles, 1st century CE. In ancient Greece and Rome, solid gold snake rings and bracelets were among the most popular types of jewelry. Snake bracelets were often worn in pairs around the wrists as well as on the upper arms. And here we have 3 renditions of snakes. On the left, we have a gold snake bracelet from woven gold, Victorian era. In the middle, we have a very contemporary brooch called Adam and Eve. And here you see the snake in the coral tree and the hand coming up from the bottom to grab the apple. And on the right, we have a diamond, emerald, and platinum snake bracelet. Superstition surrounding spiders dates back to Egyptian times. As far back as 1507, good luck or bad luck has been connected with spiders. Finding a spider in your home is a sign you're going to have a good day. If you find a spider in your pocket, it means you will be set financially for life. Because spiders can weave a web, they are associated with life, not death. But spiders are believed to be the friends of witches. And on the right, we have a spread whip spider in amber from the Dominican Republic. Here's some more spiders. On the left, we have an absolutely massive brooch called Phoenix Spider by Tony Duquette. The body is malachite, but there are also mobbing cultured pearls. There's enamel, and this is made out of 18 karat gold. On the right is a fantastic gold nose ornament with spiders from Peru. And I would just like to tell you a little bit more about this nose ornament. In pre-Columbian America, nose ornaments were among the earliest jewelry forms and were made in an endless variety of materials and styles. Those for the elite were made of precious metal. In Peru, nose ornaments became less fashionable in the second half of the first millennium CE and were seldom used after about 600. This nose ring is evidence of the high level of craftsmanship which existed among metal workers at this time. Depicted are 4 spiders sitting in their web. The openwork, lace-like quality of the object was achieved by fusing many minute parts together. The stylized spiders, their tiny eyes and fangs showing, are held each in its own open space by paired spindly legs echoing the round bodies and joined to the web. Who wouldn't enjoy wearing that, right? Memento mori. Memento mori is Latin for remember you must die. Memento mori jewelry is believed to have originated from an ancient Roman tradition. They often featured skulls, crossbones, and or skeletons. Rings which featured skeletons and skulls wearing a crown reminded wearers death is the master of all. The purpose of these rings was not sinister. It was to encourage the wearer to lead a moral life. Typically, this jewelry did not commemorate a particular person. So let me just tell you about the rings very briefly. The one on the left is from 1749, and it's black enamel, and you can see the skull underneath the rock crystal top. One of the key functions of skeletons or skulls in art is in memento mori. Their appearance derives from the Dutch vanitas paintings of the 16th and 17th centuries, where the bones came to represent the Latin phrase, this Latin phrase. The center we have another ring, not so clear about everything on there, but the one on the right is the one I'd really love to show you. The one on the right is a very rare body skeleton memorial ring in 18 karat gold. Around the outside of the ring is a representation of a complete body skeleton. It starts at the skull topped with the crown and continues around the ring with ribs, arms, and legs. Then come the signs of demise, the sand timer and pick and shovel, denoting time has run out and a grave has been dug. The arrow on the left points to the crown. So that's where this story starts for this ring. You've got the crown, and then you can just make out the skull underneath it. Then the arrow on the right points to the shovel. Mourning jewelry. Mourning jewelry was very popular during the Victorian era, 1837 to 1901. Unlike memento mori, mourning jewelry commemorated the death of a specific individual. Because hair was sacred and virtually indestructible, it was fashioned into jewelry and art. The average lifespan during the Victorian era was 40 to 45 years. Europe was frequently engaged in war. Diseases like cholera, typhoid, smallpox, and scarlet fever were common killers. Approximately 1 in 3 children died before the age of 5, and epidemics sometimes brought that number to 1 in 2. In a small way, mourning jewelry brought solace to those who lived and remained behind. The purpose of the jewelry was to keep a departed loved one near to one's heart. Hair jewelry reached its peak during the Victorian era, and this was due to Queen Victoria's decades-long depression starting in 1861 after the death of her husband, Prince Albert. By the mid-1800s, due to the popularity of memorial jewelry and memorial art, there was a shortage of hair. England was importing 50 tons of hair a year, which was used to supplement hair that was taken from the deceased and put into jewelry. And here we have 2 fine examples of hair jewelry. We have a locket on the top, a watch fob on the top and a locket on the bottom. Some superstitions associated with mourning with hair jewelry or with hair is to wear a lock of hair from a baby's first haircut would bring you good luck. It's unlucky to accept a lock of hair from a lover, and cutting your hair at night means you're asking for a family member to die. Here's our friend the snake in a gold ring. Gifting of a ring usually symbolizes love, fidelity, and happiness, but rings can also be deceptive and deadly, like poison rings. On the left, we have a hollow glass poison ring. Possible place of manufacture was in France between 1817 and 1838, and the little cap has turquoise in them. This particular ring was probably held perfume, however. And on the right was just a really fun ring by Ricardo Basta. It's quartz with tourmaline needles, gold spiders, silver cobwebs. So now I'd like to just talk about just a few of the stones. Amber, which is fossilized tree resin, increases physical vitality, draws disease from the body, and amber amulets will protect against ghosts, malevolent spirits, and the evil eye. Amber amulets can avert misfortune and bring luck and love. Here we have another Tony Duquette brooch called Solar Motive, and it's made from Baltic amber, citrine, cultured pearls, garnets, and seed pearls. Diamonds are known to promote constancy in a marriage, endows the wearer with courage and fortitude, brings victory and good fortune, and wards off evil. So with all of these positive attributes, how did some diamonds become so notoriously negative? Probably the Hope diamond being the most famous. The Hope diamond's past was associated with death and misfortune beginning back in 1839 with its owner, Henry Philip Hope. After he died, he left his estate to his nephews. Lord Francis Hope, a distant relative, inherits the stone in 1887. Francis had a scandalous marriage to an American singer and actress and ended up squandering his fortune. He had to sue his family in order to get legal authority to sell the diamond in 1901. The stone eventually made its way to Pierre Cartier, who then sold it to Evelyn Walsh McLean in 1911. Even before the Hope diamond came into her possession, McLean's life was beset by tragedy. Her brother was killed in the same accident that left her with a shortened leg. Her son died at the age of 9. Her daughter overdosed on sleeping pills and died. And her husband fell in love with another woman, which led to his nervous breakdown. Eventually, the diamond is sold to Harry Winston, who donates it to the Smithsonian Institution in 1958. And I don't know how many of you ever see the Hope diamond unmounted, probably very few in real life, but we have this great photo. This is the Hope. GIA graded it as fancy dark grayish blue. This ring that looks like an eye, which features a cabochon emerald, is very appropriate because emeralds cure diseases of the eye, so it is believed. They protect against loss of memory, confer happiness for married couples, but placed beneath the tongue, it enables you to conjure evil spirits. Jade is a generic term for two distinct mineral aggregates, nephrite and jadeite. Nephrite was discovered in China nearly 5,000 years ago, and wearing nephrite can help you make the right decision. If placed under your pillow, it can protect the sleeper from nightmares, and it can help you become more confident. And here we have a carved nephrite bat, 164 carats. And this is very sweet. It's very thin. It's almost like a disc. In Central America, jadeite tools were used as early as 1500 BCE. They are said to prevent nightmares and prevent eye troubles. Jadeite placed on the eyelids or in the mouth of a dead person brings back their spirit to another life on earth. And here in our image on our right, we have another large Chinese ornament. This is actually a hair ornament, and you can see the jadeite right there. And dragons, excuse me, dragons are a sign of good luck. Our owl has now transformed into a piece of lapis. When worn as a necklace, lapis cures apoplexy, epilepsy, skin troubles, and poor blood. It is said to strengthen friendship and raises drooping spirits. And I love this owl. It reminds me of the owl in Harry Potter, Hedwig. Moonstone is said to protect travelers, especially when traveling on the sea. They are said to bring good fortune. They are said to have curative powers for consumption, dropsy, and kidney problems. In divination, a moonstone placed in the mouth during the waning moon will help determine a course of action. And here we have a trio of man in the moon moonstone pins. Of all the gems, opal seemed to have the most amount of superstitions surrounding it. So I've just picked a few. In ancient Rome, opal symbolized love and hope. It was thought to be the embodiment of the evil eye in the 16th century. Anne of Geierstein, which is a work by Sir Walter Scott in 1829, the character Hermione died after her opal was wetted by holy water. Black opals are lucky, but white opals are unlucky if worn by someone not born in the month of October. And it is very unlucky to wear opals in an engagement ring. And here we have a fire opal breathing dragon by Ricardo Basta. So the flames are fire opal. There's also green sapphires, tsavorite, ivory, and black onyx. Pearls are said to bring health, wealth, long life, and good luck to its wearer. Pearls ward off evil. Pearls can be used in love potions. That being said, pearls are not to be in an engagement ring as they will bring tears to the marriage. And it's unlucky for brides to wear pearls. But pearls forecast danger, sickness, and death if they lose their luster. And here we have another owl and a brooch with cultured pearls, diamonds, and platinum. Quartz. Amethyst is the purple variety of quartz. And it is said that wearing amethyst, it will protect against nightmares, plagues, and infidelity, encourages calmness, and prevents drunkenness or falling in love foolishly. Rock crystal quartz can provide emotional clarity and purity of heart. It can restore lost memories, solve problems, and dispel negativity. But going back to the Pliny, he believed rock crystal was actually frozen water, which was a very hard variety of ice. And here we have an amethyst cross and a gold pendant from the Cheapside Hoard. And on the right, we have another of those carved skulls. This is Top Hat Gentle Skull with rock crystal skull and snowflake obsidian top hat. Early cultures treasured rubies for their similarity to the redness of the blood that flowed through their veins and believed that rubies held the power of life. Ruby is said to safeguard against evil, to give peace of mind, courage, insight, and mental power, prevent bad dreams and stomach ailments, bring love into your life. But the ruby color will pale in the presence of poisons. Here we have a spider made out of diamonds, rubies, and a natural pearl. And that natural pearl is 15 grams. Sapphire is said to protect against the evil eye. Blue sapphire relieves headaches, clears the head, and allows wise thinking. Blue sapphire promotes love and happiness, and will only keep its rich coloring if worn by someone in love, but loses its brightness in the presence of evil. And on the right, we have a very stylized snake in this platinum jabot brooch. And lastly, turquoise. For those who wear turquoise, it is supposed to bring happiness and good fortune. When turquoise is given as a gift, it is supposed to smooth over problems between the giver and the recipient. If you wear turquoise that belonged to a deceased person, you take on the characteristics of the once living person. And spiderweb turquoise absorbs evil. I hope there was something in there that you could take with you, something positive, and always a lot of great photos.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. That was fascinating. Let's take a few minutes to answer some of the questions. How do you think that these myths originated for a gemstone? For example, why would a cat's eye gem cure disease?
I have no idea. You know, a lot of the superstitions, well, you know, for the cat's eye curing, I think most things, when it comes to a gem with healing properties, I think it could be one of two things. Somebody had these stones and they wanted to sell them.
Mhm.
And before the Renaissance, that was the best way to do it. Put a medicinal property with it, and it sounds good. But I think there's also genuine belief, faith, if you want to call it, that these stones can provide healing properties. But I think and a lot of times too, it's just a way to sell the stones.
Sounds about right. Do you know how big the scarab watch is?
No, I don't. That is not in our museum collection, so I can't go measure it. Or you can always email me at library@gia.edu and send that question in there, and I can see what we have.
You can also ask on social media. Why do you see young children wearing amber necklaces?
That's really kind of a controversial thing right now.
Mhm.
Amber is said to like help with teething, and so because of this succinic acid, something like that in there, um, it's said to help with teething problems. But it's really not safe for children to be wearing necklaces, especially when they are laid down and go to sleep, because it causes a choking hazard. So it's a very controversial thing right now. I don't know if that amber really helps. Obviously, people believe that it does because you do see them wearing the necklaces, but we advise against putting necklaces on small children.
My grandmother was born in May and married in the US in 1919 and had an opal engagement ring. How common was negative folklore concerning opals in the US in the early 20th century?
You know, when you hear about negative superstitions or connotations with opal, it goes back, everyone talks about the Sir Walter Scott book, which was 1839. So it was probably pretty common. But, you know, things have the power that you give them. So
Yeah.
it may have been common, but maybe they just didn't know about it. I hark over to the pearls, where it's supposed to be unlucky for a bride to wear pearls, but pearl necklaces are very popular for brides to wear. Personally, I wore a strand of my mother-in-law's pearls as my something borrowed when I got married, and I'm still married to the same man, been married 26 years. So take that for superstition. So you just,
Right.
if you love it, wear it, you know, and if your grandparents were happily married, well, there you go. It all works out.
Okay, somebody asks, I thought mourning jewelry had to be all black, made of bog oak or onyx, etc. If not all black, is it called semi-mourning?
I don't. Now, Judy may have more info on this than I do, but mourning jewelry, clothing was definitely black. It doesn't have to be black to be mourning jewelry. That's
No.
just usually what it's associated with. Certainly a
Right.
lack of color in any mourning jewelry, right, Judy?
That's the Western belief. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
mourning in different, like Asian cultures would be different. I think white or yellow might also be colors
Oh,
of mourning or, funerary. So, yeah, and I've never heard the term semi-mourning, so
no.
I'm not sure that exists. Well, here's an easy one. I think you've already addressed it, but somebody asked if the library can be accessed by anyone.
Yes, anyone can contact the library. Right now, email is probably the best way to reach us. But again, you can call us, you can email us, and we can provide the same level of assistance.
Right. Well, here's one I can answer. Are the photos featured allowed to be reposted? Well, unfortunately not. A lot of these images are owned by other people perhaps, or they're copyrighted. So you'd have to ask for permission to use any of the images. And I can answer that. So if you want to send an email to photos@gia.edu, if you want to ask about using any photos, that would be the place. Is the lore about turquoise based on Native American beliefs?
Some of them were Native American. That's usually what you find. I'm just looking back here in my notes real quick, which I don't have in front of me, of course. Most of those are related to Native American, but there are other cultures that are not fans of owls. I did find really disturbing information about positive superstitions or healing properties regarding owls and bats. And that has actually led to kind of putting those species in peril because they are killed in order to make amulets or potions or
Mhm.
medicines. So it's not just Native Americans. I did find things from other cultures.
Let's see, are there myths surrounding other colors of sapphire? For example, Padrasha?
That's a really good question. And as I was making that slide, I'm going, wow, blue sapphire is very popular. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to do some checking on that. If you want me to follow up, just send an email to library@gia.edu and I can see what I can find for you because I was wondering that myself.
Hmm. Okay. Well, somebody's asking what your favorite stone is, Rose.
Oh my gosh. Well, my problem is I love it all. I work with Judy in the library and she knows I love it all. Um, hmm. I love moonstones. Those are those three little pins I showed. I love the moonstones. I
Yeah.
love just about anything. I even love costume jewelry. I have a huge costume jewelry pin collection. I have my skeleton on today in case no one caught it. I wanted to make sure you saw it. But
Lovely.
I love it all. It's very hard. It's like kid in a candy store. I can never make up my mind what I'm going to wear that day. I color coordinate, and that's probably the way I go.
Um, and somebody asks, which I think you've already answered, but you might repeat it. Are some of the books available to the public with copies?
Okay, so anything on Internet Archive, you can go on to Internet Archive. You can read the entire book online for free. You can download it and print it off for free if you want. Because these works are scanned, we would prefer that if you're interested in one of these books, that you read the digital copy, because that's how we've made it available. For the two works that are not, so there was Hairline, that was that newsletter, and then there was Budge's Amulets and Superstitions. You can, when you're allowed back on campus, you can make an appointment and you can come and read those. And actually, the Budge Amulets and Superstition has been reprinted by Dover Publications, and you should be able to find that. That's usually an easy to find thing. You might even find it at your public library. But all of the others, we have them physically here on site in Carlsbad, but we would refer you to the digital copy if necessary, because GIA is the caretaker for these things, and we want them to be in as great shape now as in 100 years from now. So that is one advantage of scanning these works, is it reduces the handling of these books. But they're all here, and other libraries may have them too, maybe a library closer to you that you could access.
How much do you think these superstitions persist in modern times? And are there regions or cultures that still hold steadfast to these ideas?
I don't want to insult anybody. I would say that because the superstitions generally arise out of not knowing what's going on, and they're used to explain something fearful or upsetting that's happening. But I think when a culture becomes more aware, more educated, more in touch with science, a lot of these superstitions disappear. But even in a first world country, superstitions very much persist. And if they're not doing any harm, why not? I just tend to associate superstitions with not being aware of what's really going on. And in many cases, it's just science. Something that's proven is maybe not known.
Okay, and somebody was asking if all the pieces that were shown are in the GIA Museum or are they in other collections?
There's only, I think, 2 or 3 that are actually here that we own. Off the top of my head, there is the nephrite bat, there is the jadeite panther, and there is the woven gold snake bracelet. I know those are in the museum. I tried to remember to put that in the captions of the images so that you would know we own those. All of the rest of them are owned by other people. We just had, in most cases, we had the privilege to photograph, the owner allowed us to photograph those for our course material images. And a couple of the images, like the skeleton pendant with the scythe, that's actually, it's a public domain image, but it's owned by the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And there was another one too, I can't remember. It's credited as to who owns that.
And somebody's asking for a list of the books that you mentioned in your talk. So would you be able to send that if they write to library@gia.edu?
Yeah, and I'll give you the full citation. I didn't give the full citation on those screenshots, but I'll give you the full citation. But yeah, just send an email to library@gia.edu and I'll get you that.
See, wasn't jet also popular as mourning jewelry?
I think,
Was hair or jet more popular during the Victorian era?
I'm sorry, Judy, would you repeat that last part?
Sure. Was hair or jet more popular during the Victorian era?
Do you know, Judy? Do you know the answer to that one?
You know, I would say that hair jewelry was probably a little more available, and certainly in the US, because there were actually, books that would tell people how they can make their own hair jewelry and weave it and braid it. Jet is specifically from Whitby, England, I believe. And so there were different imitations of jet that were available. Black material that was similar perhaps. So as far as real jet, I'd say that it was more regional, I would say. Okay, I just want to thank everyone for attending today. And there'll be an email coming out later today as a reminder with the link to the recording and also a survey which we would like you to complete and provide your feedback about the talk today. So please join us again next week for our next GIA Knowledge session. And that's going to be about lab-grown colored gemstones, growth methods and techniques, with Jennifer Stone Sundberg as the speaker. So should be a good one. Thank you very much, everyone. And
Thank
Rose,
you.
great talk.
Oh, thank you. Happy Halloween, everybody. Be safe.
Thanks.